How's it going, everyone? Dr. Frankie here. So happy to be back with you all. I've got amazing questions today that I'm really excited to tackle. But before we jump into those questions, I want to remind you to go to welcometovenus.com where you can download your app. And it's free right now, but it won't be forever. So don't miss this opportunity to get a lifetime membership right now. So welcometovenus.com. Here we go. I'm going to jump into my questions because I have a lot of them. Let's see if I can get through all of them. The first one we have today is from Tasha. In queer women's relationships, outside stress like family rejection, microaggressions, or just feeling invisible seeps into our home life. Sometimes it's hard to know, are we fighting each other or are we fighting the world? How can partners tell the difference? And how do we repair when those two are tangled up? Great question, Tasha. First of all, it's hard to tease out where stress is coming from. And I think when you're living a life that is disenfranchised and discriminated against, like being a part of the LGBTQ community, this is a challenge that we have. So I think just kind of being able, again, to communicate. I always repetitively say this, communication is key. So checking in with each other on a daily basis, seeing, getting a temperature read is what I call it. Like, how are things going, especially now in the world with all of the, not even microaggression, so much aggression and just discrimination that's happening and just hostile language that you're hearing just surfacing. So just checking in with one another. How's the day been going? Has anything come up? Any way that I can support you? Checking in daily, right now especially. I used to say weekly, sit down and have an intentional 15-minute check-in about the relationship, but I think right now it should be daily. And does it really matter so much if it's like coming from the outside world that then is getting, well, I guess it does. If it's getting acted out in the relationship and figuring out how to tease out, is this something from an external source or not? The point is, if tensions are being played out, and oftentimes they are, we bring in our stress into our relationship because we're safest in relationship. And that's our person that we connect with more regularly. So naturally, we're going to displace some of our fears, our distrust, all of that in the relationship. So it's about being open, communicating without judgment, without criticism. That's a good start right there. Thanks so much, Tasha. Maribel. In past relationships, I felt very seen, but now in my relationship with another woman, I sometimes feel invisible. Like our struggles don't even exist to the wider world, queer or straight. How do I reclaim my voice inside the relationship without making my partner feel attacked? And how do we co-create space where we both feel valid? Yeah, again, this is about communication. So I don't know if many of you have heard of John Gottman, but he's been studying successful relationships for like over 3 decades. And he talks about a gentle startup, which is using language like I feel, insert emotion about a specific situation, and I need, and you ask for a positive request. And the way that this looks is, I feel overwhelmed when the kitchen is left messy. Can we clean up together after dinner? So it's an I statement, right? I feel about a situation, and then you make a suggestion for a positive request. The next thing you want to consider is turning toward and not away. When your partner says, look at the sunset, they're really saying, share this moment with me. So turning towards builds trust and emotional intimacy over time. Managing conflict, you don't want to avoid it. I know it's easy for a lot of us to just like brush it under the rug and avoid it because conflict is hard. But remember, on the other side of conflict is intimacy. So we've got to head on conflict, right? Face it head on. The goal is to eliminate conflict, but to discuss it with respect and curiosity rather than trying to win. Oftentimes we're trying to win or make our point. Really, it's about being curious and trying to reach a resolution and both feeling heard and seen. So reflecting back what you're hearing your partner share, even if you don't agree. Just reflecting back doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with their perspective. The 4 horsemen. So important. Think about this. When you're going in to communicate, you don't want to use criticism. So use gentle startup to express feelings and needs instead of blaming them. Defensiveness is one of the four horsemen. Take responsibility for even small parts of the issue. Sometimes apologizing, right? Even if you feel like it's not your fault, we have to sometimes take one for the team. It creates a sense of like just feeling seen, safety, and so on. Contempt. This is one that's really common and so toxic. Express appreciation, respect regularly. Don't roll your eyes. Don't huff and puff, right? Those are contemptuous behaviors that are toxic. Stonewalling. Stepping away and ignoring, right? Avoiding. Ignoring your partner for days on end. You don't want to do that. You want to take a breath, right? Take a break if you need it, self-soothe, try to regulate your system, and return to the discussion calmly so that it can be productive. Hopefully this helps, Maribel. And that's how you can reclaim your voice, stay grounded, and instill a really good foundation for communication about things that could be conflictual in the future. Another question from Renee. Sometimes I feel like in queer women's relationships, we carry invisible emotional labor, helping each other through coming out pain, family stuff, identity struggles. Over time, I've noticed I'm giving more than I'm getting. How do I raise that imbalance with tenderness without sounding like a blame game? And how do couples renegotiate emotional care so both partners feel held? Renee, this goes to boundaries, right? We need to figure out what it is that we feel comfortable with. How much of ourselves can we give? We have to first make sure that we are resourced. Sorry, my dogs are barking. Resourced so that we can show up in the relationship. But also, we want to avoid being codependent where we're taking on way too much and actually we are getting depleted ourselves and we're not getting restored enough. So again, communication without criticism and expressing what your need is and not putting it on or blaming your partner in any way. It's like I'm reflecting on things that are important to me in this relationship, and here's what I'm going to need going forward. So when we set boundaries, it's like it's about what you need to do so that you can show up in the best way possible in the relationship, in support of the relationship. Sarah, let's see. I've been in a committed relationship for 4 years with someone I love deeply. That's beautiful. But my sex drive with them is so much lower than it's been with past partners. My sex drive with them tends to be reactive rather than spontaneous. And I don't feel the same physical pull or obsession I've felt before in previous relationships. Could this be a sign of fundamental incompatibility, or is it normal for attraction to feel different in a long-term loving relationship? Yes. When you're in a stable, consistent, safe relationship, it feels more boring and repetitive because you don't really have all of this like toxic, push pull situations that can really, like, you get a lot of endorphins and serotonin and norepinephrine when you go from having a fight to passionate sex. Like a lot of these toxic ways that we can engage in relationship, when that doesn't exist anymore, and you've got somebody that respects you, shows up for you, validates you, is consistent, is loving and caring, there's no manipulation, there's no criticism, it can feel boring because you don't have that toxic bonding, right? So that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the relationship fundamentally. It actually means it's really great. If this person turns you on, and maybe you're not getting turned on like you did in those toxic relationships, it's just because that component isn't there anymore. And that neurochemical, right? The chemicals that used to get secreted aren't getting secreted to the same rate today. So the important thing is that you are attracted to one another, that you do get turned on. So what? That it's like reactive to them actually initiating and it's not so spontaneous. But when it's happening, you're into it, you're enjoying it, you're able to give and receive affection and, sexual, like you can experience desire and interest and all of that. I don't think there's a problem. I think that it's a loving relationship that's long term, that also has ebbs and flows. Sometimes you're going to be more interested in intimacy and sex with your partner than other times, depending on what's happening in the world, in your life, at work, with family. All these stressors, we tend to bring them back into our relationships, and sometimes that affects libido. Oftentimes it affects libido. So good luck. Hope that was helpful. Julia, I'm a lifelong people pleaser, and that tendency shows up in my relationships. I take on the role of caretaker, constantly focusing on my partner's comfort and satisfaction while quietly ignoring my own. I know this creates an imbalance and breeds quiet resentment, but it's hard to unlearn. The hardest part has been shifting the dynamic in my current relationship. My partner is used to me being endlessly flexible and accommodating. How can I start asserting my needs and help my partner adjust without it feeling like a betrayal of the balance we've built? So, Julia, this sounds to me much like a codependent relationship where you are putting your own needs aside in order to bend and flex and accommodate your partner's wishes, wants, all of that at your expense, which long term is really detrimental to the longevity of your relationship. So, what I suggest you do is that you let them know that you are actually, like, this isn't a surprise. You're communicating that you've been thinking about it and you're wanting to, you really value the relationship and you want to make sure that it's based on a healthy foundation, so it's secure and it's going to last long term. And one thing you recognize is that you sometimes put your own needs aside, and that has nothing to do with them and all to do with you. And you are actively working on changing this behavior, and they may notice small changes. So what I would do is very slowly you take baby steps to change, because anything too abrupt or too extreme can impact and create an imbalance, right? It impacts the equilibrium and the balance of the relationship, because so far this is something that's been established and what your partner is used to. So take baby steps, let them know that this is in the works, that this is something you're doing for yourself in the best interest of the relationship, that it has nothing to do with your partner doing something wrong. You've got to verbalize that. Okay, I'm getting through these questions. I've got a few more. Samira, I don't think my partner enjoys sex as much as she says she does. I've tried to ask what she wants, but it's hard to get her to open up. She's carrying some past trauma that I suspect makes it difficult for her to fully relax and enjoy intimacy. I want to be supportive and help her feel safe, but I'm not sure how to do that without making her feel pressured or exposed. When I do talk about it, she seems defensive and a little indignant. How can I create space for honest communication and healing without crossing her boundaries? So, Samira, I think many of us aren't comfortable talking about our traumas, our sexual desires. We have fears of shame, fears of judgment, fears of criticism. Maybe it was never modeled for your partner, to talk about emotionally, laden or embarrassing things that she just doesn't, or they just don't have the experience doing it. So what do? They avoid it and become uncomfortable because they feel like a spotlight has been placed on them when you bring it up for conversation. So what I would do is without even asking, I would, directly, I would do it gently, indirectly. So if there are, you're being intimate, you're checking in. How does this feel for you? How do you, is there anything that you want to do differently? Also, I would suggest maybe doing the yes, no, maybe list that I've discussed. You can look it up online or go to my blog, littlegaybook.com, click on the blog and type in yes, no, maybe list to explore, like, what's a total yes sexually and intimately, and what's a total no, and then what's a maybe. Maybe you don't know certain things about each other that you could further explore, or maybe there are things happening in the relationship currently that they don't feel comfortable directly addressing with you because they're afraid of offending you. So going through this exercise kind of provokes conversation. in a constructive way that is really supportive of you learning more about each other and experimenting and experiencing things differently with one another. And that will open up dialogue where it's less like focused on her or them directly and can feel like overwhelming and too exposing. So hopefully that helps. Jessica, let's see. Since coming out, I've really struggled with feeling confident while dating. I compare myself to every lesbian I meet and always end up feeling like a loser. Less experience, less desirable, less sure of myself. I worry about everything. My body being liked by their friends and family, saying the wrong thing, being taken advantage of. I want to meet someone great, but the whole process just makes me anxious and guarded. How do I get past that? So it really sounds like you're feeling pretty insecure about what you have to offer, about how fantastic you are. So a lot of the work has to do with building up your sense of self, your self-worth, your confidence. So what I recommend is strengthening that internal validation, and it starts with you. Write down 3 qualities you value about yourself that are not physical. Like, an example would be, I'm thoughtful, I listen deeply, I show up honestly. When anxiety hits before, a date, you want to kind of read this list, bring it back up, put it in your wallet, put it somewhere where you can easily access it. Ask yourself, what would I want someone to see in me if I stopped trying to impress them? You want to also be reframing. So the way you can do that, it's called cognitive reframing. Try the mantra, her success or confidence doesn't take away from mine. Remember, everyone has insecurities, especially in queer spaces where representation and belonging are still developing. So you want to shift curiosity outward. Instead of, am I as good as her? You want to ask, what do I find inspiring about her? Do you see that slight shift? You want to also ground your nervous system and regulate. So before meeting someone, take 3 deep breaths. So 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Feel your feet on the ground and say quietly, I'm safe. I'm allowed to be myself. After the date, right? Notice how your body felt in their presence. Was it relaxed? Was it tense? Was it open? This gives you data, right? Then it's better than overthinking, right? Just noticing your own body and taking that in and assessing. Develop a secure dating mindset. So replace, I hope they like me, with, I hope we connect. Remember, your role is not to prove your worth, but to assess compatibility. Practice setting boundaries early. For example, I'd rather meet for tea than drinks, to build confidence in your right to shape the experience. Remember, you have agency. Go ahead and ask for what it is that you need. And build community. Get connected with other queer folks that are supportive, encouraging, validating. This is what we need right now more than ever. We need that badly. So I would say that's how you get past this, and know that you're fantastic. You don't need to be like everybody else. And I can tell you, your perception of them is different than their perception of themselves. Just like your perception of yourself is different than the way people perceive you. So keep that in mind. Susan, this is the last one. I think I'm going over time, but let's do it. Sex with my partner has become routine. We're comfortable with each other, but it doesn't feel exciting anymore. I don't want to rely on toys or novelty items just for stimulation. And things like dirty talk or bondage feel awkward and cringy for both of us. We're both relatively vanilla, so it's hard to find ideas that feel fun and natural. How can we reconnect and explore a deeper, sexier connection without forcing ourselves into things that we're not comfortable with? Again, I'm going to go back to my yes, no, maybe list. You want to pull that out. You want to chat about it, explore what's yes for you, what's yes for them, what is a maybe for both of you. See where you are aligned and see where you differ. And you want to definitely be changing it up, right? I think I mentioned this last time. It's hard to have the same meal the same way, cooked the same way, right? Imagine nothing's different, morning, noon, and night. Over time, as you're in a relationship, things get routine. We tend to go to what we know what that works, but it can get mundane, routine, and boring. So you want to change it up. And I don't know that you need to rely on toys or novelty items for stimulation. I think people are afraid that they're going to rely on them. Just think of them as like a supportive adjunct. It's something like you can use a vibrator or a dildo to add to the experience. It doesn't have to replace anything. It's not something you have to go to every time. But even if it is something that you or your partner need to go to actually climax, or some of us just need more stimulation, hell yeah, say yes to that. It's all about experiencing pleasure and not feeling threatened by bringing something novelty in to create more excitement and pleasure. It's all about the joy that you're having together and the amazing experience of connection with one another that is just specific to the two of you. So good luck, Susan. Good luck, everybody else. I hope my tips and tools are helpful, and I appreciate you all for showing up here, for submitting such amazing questions. Keep them coming, and I'll keep showing up and answering. And take good care, everyone. Kisses, hugs. See y'all next time.